So right now in our docs controller, we have all these actions, but we don't have any view files that correspond to them. So if you look in the docs directory, which was made when we created this controller, there are no view files. And what happens is there's actually a very common error, which let me show you here. If you go localhost 3000/docs/new, this is supposed to be the new directory that will show us the new file, and it says template is missing. So to get rid of this error, we need to create a new file. And let's go back into Sublime Text. In the docs directory, let's create a new file. Let's save it as new.html.haml. Let's also create a second one here, which will be a partial, and this will be the form partial, so it'll be form.html.haml. Form partial or partials in generally are created because we want the content inside it to render somewhere else. So the form we create here will render on new.html.haml and also on edit.html.haml. So let's begin by, let's first create a placeholder here to get rid of that error message. So let's do h1 and let's just say new doc, and let's save this. Let's go back into our browser and see if this error has been removed. Perfect. And this is where that form will also be rendering in a moment. But we need to actually properly install SimpleForm. There's at least one step left. So if you click on the homepage link in the Ruby gems for SimpleForm, it will take you to the GitHub repository for SimpleForm, and it gives us clear instructions on how to properly install it. We added it to our gem file earlier. We ran bundle install, but this is left, this step right here. So let's copy this. And by the way, if you were using Bootstrap, you would add the Bootstrap flag to this command. We're not using that, so we'll just leave it blank. So let's go back into our terminal. Let's paste it in and let's run this command. This essentially installs the SimpleForm gem properly. Now we can begin using it in our partial. Also, we'll want to refresh or restart our server at this point because whenever you work with gems or installation, it's good practice to do that. So let's restart the server. Let's go back here. Okay, everything is looks like it's properly installed into our application. Let's actually go back into our form partial now and begin working on it. So we can go here and let's add here simple form 4, and this is going to be for the doc partial. I'm sorry, an instance variable, so be a doc, and then do f, and then let's actually just create the input files for the title, the content, and a submit button at the bottom. So be f.input, and then there'll be title, and right underneath here will be f.input as well, but this one will be for the content. And then we'll also want f.submit, or f.button I should say, which will be submit. So what this does is it uses this doc instance variable, which is an instance of a document. We created a model for it earlier, but we haven't defined it in our controller. So it's going to throw an error on us, especially when we ask it to render on new.html.haml. So right here, we're going to say, let's say render form. So it's going to look for form in this directory, in the docs directory, and it's going to find it, which is here, the form partial that we just created. It's going to take this and render it on new.html.haml, but add doc has not been defined yet, so it's going to give us an error. And to show you that, let's actually go to our browser and let's refresh this. And again, you see this, it says this has not been, there's no method for it. So let's actually go back into Sublime Text, and this is going to be in docs controller. So right underneath here, we need to properly define the new action and the create action as well. So we're going to do at doc, or the instance of a document, is just going to be a new document. So it's going doc.new. Let's save this, and we're actually going to do the same. Let's just copy this, and we'll do the same. We'll add it down here, but in this case, we're also going to say doc params. So when you create a document, what are you creating? You're creating its parameters, its title and its content. And those are the two components of a document for us. So we're saying that if these two we're asking it to create these two parameters, and if the doc or doc.save, we want our application to redirect us to the document itself, or the instance of that document that was just created. Else, we want to render the new file because it has failed to create it for us, so we can get a chance to create it again. And by the way, the reason we don't have redirect here is because let's say you create a long document, it does not successfully save. Redirect would be a new HTTP refresh, so you'd lose all the content. But render does not refresh the page. It keeps you where you are, and you get to make another attempt at saving it. So let's save this. So we've created the new and create actions. We also need to obviously define this because our params, the reason we have it here is because it makes sense by Rails convention, dry, do not repeat yourself. To keep it down here, we'll be using doc params later on in our update action as well. So we need to define doc params. In our case, it's going to be params dot require, and this is require, let me save that, properly spell that, and this is going to be the doc model that we created earlier, and we're going to permit the two attributes. In our case, it's going to be the title, and it's going to be the content. So let's save this. Let's make sure I spelled everything correctly, and I close this block as well, so everything looks good. Let's save. Let's go back into our browser now, and if we refresh, we shouldn't have that error anymore. So we have the option to create new documents.